with his band of men. Over the points, the 6-5 special singer down the line, the 6-5 plays you right on time. Hello everyone. Well, what a wonderful decade this has been. The Festival of Britain on London's South Bank put the great back in Britain, and the crowning of Her Majesty the Queen heralded a new Elizabethan age. The British expedition, led by Edmund Hillary, conquered Everest, and we've seen the launch of the Independence television. We received a telegram from Messrs. Burgess and Maclean saying we are taking a long Mediterranean holiday. Her Majesty the Queen opened the subscriber trunk dialing. We finally got rid of rationing. But everything was still rather black and white. Tonight in glorious colour, but now with the odd touch of grey, we'll be reliving those glorious monochrome days which made Britain great in the 50s. TV was just beginning to flex its muscles, and it was these things that transmitted it all in black and white. We'll be talking to the TV legends, recalling how we stunned our washboards in the innocent days of skiffle. We'll reminisce about the heyday of British cinema and remember how we used to play the game. But perhaps our most vivid memories are in our imagination because the 50s were the golden age of radio. So come and join me and my trousers in the parlour with the creator of some of radio's finest comedy shows, Dennis Norton and Sir Neddy Seagood, alias Sir Harry Beacon. Hello, gents. You're right, obviously the 50s was the place to be, but the rules were much stricter, weren't they? Was that a problem?
Well, yes, they were. I mean, there were certain things you weren't allowed to write about, namely politics, religion and sex, which are really the only things worth writing about. The sort of current folklore had it that when you put a script into a BBC producer, he would really go, that's out. But it wasn't a problem, really. We weren't conscious that there were better things.
You don't say anything to us? Well, we used to use the play off of rather naughty army jokes. Used to get a laugh, but, you know, in themselves they were perfectly innocuous. But you weren't allowed to say things like blood orange, were you? Or district nurse. We used the rapier, not the bludgeon.
Well, the goons must have been in trouble constantly.
All the time, yes. I mean, we used to put things that we shouldn't do. But you know, in the old days, it was all done on disc, so you couldn't really fuck about. It wasn't so tasty, man, and they could edit it, but we really went down. But we did all sorts of naughty things. For example, you weren't allowed to bring drinking to a studio. So we sell bottles of milk full of brandy. Yes. So every time there was a musical incident, like when Ray Ellington came out, and when Max Gerber came out, we had a quick round the back of the old brandy there. The last part of the show was normally incoherent. Oh, I've often wondered why.
I'll tell you what, now we have from Blue Bottle's private film archive a rare look at the goons in action.
The crimes you are about to hear have been specially committed for this program. Here to tell you the story with words is Captain Harry Seagood.
I remember when it all started. The time I was asleep in my electrified Elizabeth hammock. I said it again. At the time I was asleep. Get that Milligan out. Come here. Step in your foot, boy. At the time. enjoy that as well, didn't you?
Oh, I did enjoy that.
It's like that all the time.
Well, we had a lot of fun. I mean, the warm-up was hilarious. Because I come on and sing Falling in Love with Love, and they do terrible things behind me. I had to put my trousers down and all sorts of things. And I think the warm-up stuff, that was the best part of the show, which unfortunately the listener didn't hear.
How did the producer cope?
Well, very badly. We had several producers. Some, I think, hanged themselves eventually. Oh no, Dennis Bain Wilson, or Spanish Bain Wilson, as he's called him. Anyway, we used to lock him in the control room sometimes, you know. We used to lock him in. And,
Also known as Dennis Bain Drainage.
yeah, we called him Menace Bain Wilson, Spanish Bain. He put up with it all. Nice fella.
Well, if Dennis Bain Wilson had trouble with the comedian, spare a thought for the producer who had to work with Brian Johnston in Town Tonight. But Brian, you used to hit the headlines more than once, didn't you?
Yeah, we once got a 3-inch headline in the People saying, stupid BBC stunt stupefies Piccadillians. It was because we wanted to see whether people read the personal columns in the papers. So on Friday night, the evening news, we put, well set up young gentleman invites young ladies seeking adventure to meet him on the steps of Criterion Restaurant, 7:15 p.m. Saturday night. Identification, blue and white spotted scarf and red carnation. And I came down, having done the cricket, and I saw the police were holding arms, holding back a crowd. Lower Regency was packed. Some with lovely women, some not very lovely. And in the crowd were a lot of young men in blue and white spotted scarves and red carnations. But that got a tremendous headline. The police weren't too pleased.
Must have been the well set up, did it? Now, while you were making headlines at home, Brian, people all over the world were tuning into their radios. The date, the 2nd of June, 1953. Raymond Baxter was one of the radio commentators on the day. Was it difficult, Raymond, not to get carried away?
It was extremely difficult not to get carried away. It was difficult, to be more accurate, the reverse. Because I was doing the radio commentary on a wooden stand. And the only way I could see anything at all was by leaning out across the low ballast rail, supported by my number 2, as they called them then. They call them producers on fair more money. But Jamie was hanging onto my leg as I leant out, full stretch, touching my lip microphone. I described that magic moment. The coronation coach came into view, and my number 2 came just totally carried away with emotion. He threw both his arms up in the air and his hand, and I very nearly wound up interviewing the lead pair of twins.
Your voice never faltered.
Oh, thank you very much.
But it was the event, of course, that sent people out to buy television. Yes, I suppose people want to have your own way of that thing.
Well, we could claim a lot of expenses. I bought the television set before the coronation, and I never saw the coronation because so few people had them. I invited as many members of my family as I could sit in the front room to watch it with me. I spent the whole of the day on the phone with members of the family I hadn't invited, trying to placate them.
You saw it, Harry?
I saw it, yes. I saw it in my mother's house. And all the family were there. I remember very vividly the day before the concert, where there were crowds still were sort of skipping out to the street. And Billy and myself and Ray Ellington, and Mike Benty, decided we'd go around the whole route of the coronation procession. Dressed up with furs and parkas and a sleigh with Ray Ellington pulling it as the expedition to find the East Pole. Nobody took any notice of it.
Mascara run, oh dear. Well, Ella Braden, who actually worked on the television coverage, was it more organised, Ernest, than the radio version?
I think probably it was, largely owing to a remarkable man called Anthony de Lotbiniere, who was in charge of all of us who were involved in television presentation. And the day before the coronation, as I well remember, he gave us a briefing in Broadcasting House in a very large room. We all sat in teams, and he gave us a briefing of what was going to happen, when it was going to happen, how it was going to happen, what shouldn't be done, what should be done. And then he suddenly said, any questions? And sat down in the full knowledge that nobody could possibly conceive of a question after the briefing he'd given us. But to our astonishment, a hand went up. It was a lady's hand, a lady commentator, and she said, I wonder, sir, if you could tell us what would be the policy in the event of a catastrophe. And he pondered that a moment and then said, well, I'm not quite sure what you mean by a catastrophe. But if you mean that as the golden coach is approaching Admiralty Arch, a wheel comes off and the Queen is lying bruised and bleeding onto the cobblestone, I would think the policy would be to minimize it as much as possible.
Only the BBC. Now, the coronation marked the day that television came into its own. The event created outside broadcast television, and the skills learned were developed in complex and wide-ranging programs like sports.
Welcome to sport. Evening, East End Mobile Unit, Wolverhampton Wanderers, the Football League champions. Well, I don't know, hearing that music again certainly sets the adrenaline going. But remember, virtually all television in those days was live. You were always on a knife edge, no chance of the second bite of the cherry. I bet Wolves, too, wished that it was still 1958. And the producer also asked me if I could find that jacket that I was wearing in that film, and I did. And it still fits. I think that only tells me that I was as fat then all those years ago as I am today. Well, now, the many aspects that were influenced by television in the 50s, I think the sport of spectating was perhaps affected the most. Many of you may remember, just before the infamous England v Hungary match, off-licensed beer sales shot up. People got ready to watch live international football coming into their living.
Now a chance for good Rudy. It's a goal! Well, everybody has always said these continentals can't shoot. If that's the same for what we're going to have this afternoon, then England are going to be in dire trouble.
Dire trouble indeed. And the final score, 6-3 to Hungary. But it wasn't just ticket holders who could talk tactics after the match. Fans in the comfort of their own homes were crying into their beer. And so was born the armchair expert. And soon we were showing everyone at home sporting history as it was being made.
Soon after lunch, Bill Johnston bowls what was to be his last over. And then, a sporting gesture that wins the hearts of the crowd, Hassett himself has a go. Edwards sweeps that one to leg, while Hassett good-humouredly waits for the end. And Compton does it. After 20 years, England had taken the Ashes.
Well, some familiar faces there. Fred Truman, who'd just been named Young Cricketer of the Year. Dennis Compton, who for many was the epitome of a sportsman in the 50s. Well-dressed, well-spoken, and so well-groomed. In fact, a typical brillcream boy. And a very sporting all-rounder as well. It seems inconceivable to us now that a professional cricketer for England and Middlesex was in those days also able to play football at the very highest level.
Arsenal kicked off and applied the pressure right from the start. Dennis Compton takes the corner, and Lewis is there to put home Arsenal's first goal, making it 1-0 at half-time.
And in between, he played a mean game of darts for the Red Lion B team. And on rarer occasions still,
Dennis Compton squidging a wink, as if to prove he's an all-rounder.
yes, those were the days when sport was still fun. And plumbers like Tom Finney, who did a little bit of football on the side, have become national sporting heroes.
Thank you, Peter Devitt. Tom Finney, how did you think of the plumbing and play football at the same time?
Well, it was pretty simple, really, Michael, because, I was a plumber by trade, and during my playing career, I kept in business as a plumber, and of course we had, in those days, train for 3 hours in the morning, finish at 1 o'clock, and then afterwards I spent most of the time then at the business. The bulk of the players, of course, were probably like in the hill here going golfing, and that's why it's such a good handicap at golf.
But Dennis Compton, how did you manage to be professional in all those things, football, cricket, in the wing?
Well,
I suppose because the two sports overlap, but I well remember my getting 100 schools. The elementary school is the public schools, and Sir Pelham Warner was there watching the match. And of course he thought my mum had over afterwards. He would like to put Dennis on the payroll for the summer. So my mother said, no, my boy's going to be a teacher. Because it's only 4 months of the year. So what's he going to do for the other 8 months? So then I played for England schoolboys against Wales, and there was an artist scout came and did the same thing to my mother. He said, but this will be for 8 months. My mother said, well, that's 12 months of the year. Fine.
Very neat, that. Now, Chris Morgan, do you mourn the passing of the amateur sport?
No. I don't think no. I would have had a better suit than yours. But the only difference, I think, from looking at the boys is this from the 50s until now, that we used in the 50s an excessive embrocation, working on the theory if you're not fit, for God's sake, smell fit. I honestly think that people didn't take themselves as seriously. I'm sorry for the young people playing games now because they've got to do so many things for discipline. They spend hours looking at video and training. But we didn't do that at all. We didn't know what a coach was. Posh bastard.
Just got out there and did it. Fred Truman, you would agree, I'm sure, that it was the golden age of English cricket.
Yes, I think it would, yeah. There were so many great players around, you know. And it was different, of course, because when I played in my first test match for England, I got £50 and third-class treble. I remember having a great series against India, and a brewery called Truman's Brewery from Burton-on-Trent, they wanted to pay me about £150 down, so much per wicket, so much per catch, so much per run, and £50 for every test match I was chosen, you see. And of course, up at Yorkshire, which was a great county in those days, they had a meeting with the county committee. Well, they did. They had a meeting with the county committee, of course, and said, no, this is a very bad image for a fast bowler. And so I could have made enough money in one advert to have bought myself a semi-detached house, of course, but they stopped it, and I still kept travelling third class for another 2 years. They were tremendous days, great era, yeah, marvellous.
Well, Jimmy Hill, I mean, it was kind of great sporting achievement, but the money didn't seem to be reflected. It certainly didn't break any records, did it?
Not for professional footballers. At the start of the 50s, the maximum wage then was £12 a week, and it got to 20 by the end.
What was the average wage in the country at that time?
At the start, I suppose about £8. Professional footballers got £3 a week before the war, which wasn't bad then. It was pretty good, but gradually it got worse and worse. But it was the principle that an employer was not allowed to pay an employee, however successful the business was, or the football club, anything more than £20 a week. And when some Sunderland players were found to have taken more from their employees, I mean, they were treated like criminals. Now that sounds impossible in this day and age, but it existed. And all through the 50s, we didn't think that the maximum wage would ever go. And as you see now, they're all learning far too much for the clubs to afford them.
Well, thank you. I just wonder if these folks here would like to contribute anything to this discussion. Apparently not. Anyway, I'm going to be doing an in-depth face-to-face interview with them later, if we can keep them awake in part 2. But in the meantime, here's an example of how two hard-pressed sportsmen made ends meet and kept their chins up.
This is Jimmy Hill, full of famous bearded inside right, shaving his beard off with the new Remington, the world's fastest shave. Freddie Truman, this bowler shaving a 10 days growth of beard and moustache with the new Remington, the world's fastest shave.
garden like a little bear. Just jumping in the air.
Yes, pretty place, sir. What would you like? A muffin, you. All right. There's a muffin. Pretty place, sir. Anyway, I'll see you on it. Look, Muffin doesn't like that. No.
We all enjoyed that. Welcome to my highly contemporary living room of the 1950s. Now, Anne Hogarth was pulling the strings in those days, and it was pretty violent stuff. Did it get any worse than that?
No, I don't think it got much worse than that. But we did have our moments. He got his striptease and buy a goat when we went to the London Zoo. Things like that happened, but we took him in our stride. We didn't really say anything.
Now, Peter Hawkins was the voice of many characters, including villains then. Which was which?
Bill was the high one.
Ben was the low one. I got Mitchell.
You actually worked in a script.
Oh, yes, I had because I was working for speed sometimes. when they were singing songs, you know, they were going at a right old man.
Otherwise, it would have seemed silly. So Audrey Atterbury was the puppeteer for Bill and Ben, Andy Pandy, and the Wooden Tops, and you even had to bail them out of trouble.
Oh, yes, they were kidnapped on their way to the Edinburgh Festival, 50 years of children's television. They disappeared for a long time. And then eventually, they turned up in a street market somewhere in the East End and were taken along to Philip's auction room, where they rang up the BBC and said, "We think we've got some of your characters here." And then I was rung up and said, would I go along with a policeman to identify the puppets? So I went along with Philip and had to identify the Wooden Tops, not Andy Pandy, and the Flower Pot Men. And they eventually, think after a great shock to their systems, were saved, as it were, and rescued from this extraordinary coincidence, or happening, rather.
So quite priceless, really.
Priceless, absolutely. Yes. I think they thought so at the time.
Now, some of you will remember that there used to be a toddler's truce at the end of the afternoon, when the television screens went blank while the children were put to bed. But when programs resumed, you still had to be on your best behavior, and there was a strict dress code.
Okay, could you take it on it? Yes, thank you so much. Isn't there? Sorry, my dear Huntington. I'm so glad I ran into you. Listen, they want me to do a television series. But you? Well, it's just this. I mean, is it? To get the daily series. Daily? There aren't that number of earrings in the world. Earrings? My dear, for a woman on television, only three things really matter. Hair, jewelry, clothes. Ah, now what about clothes? Does one plunge or does one... Or happy medium, you know. Right there. Actually, there is a regulation BBC pencil line. You do things below if they come along and sit a bit of
Well, Mary Malcolm was one of the TV announcers in the early days. Is it true about the Pinsole line?
Yes, it is true. There was the judicious employment of the plastic, no, not plastic, it was paper road. But actually, it never bothered me terribly because I don't have one, you know. Lots of other things bothered me about being announcers, like Frog and Frost and all those things, you know, and Shouting Stars. But I didn't have that trouble. But my colleague here was, she was slightly better. It does, right?
Yes, sitting next to you with Sylvia Peter. Yes, tell me about it.
She had trouble. I had terrible trouble with my bust, and the lighting was so bad that it cast awful shadows. I always had practically a vast flowers. When I went to Paris to work for French television, the BBC was so prudish. They were really worried, and they sent me with a huge basket, layers of artificial flowers. And I had to talk my way out of the customs with that. And they thought I was mad. I kept saying, big portage, you know. And in the end, I got through, and I might tell you I didn't wear a single flower.
Well, I was there a little after that. With you for a while, and all of your roses was everywhere.
bit until I was much more comfortable. And there was one terrible night, I think I wriggled a little bit too much and was over-comfortable. And the telephones rang, and one man said, tell Katie her dumplings are boiling over.
A man rang up, huh?
A man? Oh, he was. I don't think he was complaining.
Oh.
I hope not. I hope not.
Now, Beverly Sisters, now you three girls, I mean, you really got in trouble with the censorship.
We used to drive them wild with our dresses in that little see-through numbers, and we turned up live for one live television. This halls the size of dinner plates, showing the belly button, you know. Well, of course, you weren't allowed to say the word belly, and of course, you weren't allowed to have a belly button in the 50s. Have one. You didn't have one.
So what did you do? What happened?
So that was out. Well, we had to wear vests underneath them. But, you know, they were so stuffy, you see.
Oh, we had a lifetime, didn't we, of fights.
Our battles run long battles with the censor over lyrics and everything.
But it wasn't only songs, of course, which were censored. For news reporters, life was far from easy in the days when politicians set the rules.
I've come here not to talk to you, but certainly not to enable you to spread the tale all over the place, but just to enable me to see what are the conditions under which this thing they call TV is going to make its way in the world.
Well, sir, could you tell us anything about the talks you've had in Washington?
No. I'll tell you what I did, sir.
Will you dare say what those line of conversation is going to take, sir? No. 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 Not going to say that.
Well, it was good of him to come, wasn't it? There was one fresh-faced young man who's changed the whole approach to interviewing, fearless and incisive. Here he is in action, asking a man of the cloth about his attitude to nudism.
I don't think it's wrong in any way, but unusual, and it could very easily lead to irregularity and misunderstanding. It would attract the attention of peeping toms and people who are interested perhaps for the wrong reason.
But surely that's the fault of the peeping toms and not the nudists.
Isn't there some reason why people who are interested in nudism are themselves odd in their ideas?
Well, that's what I'm asking you. I thought you believed that.
Yes, I do.
Now, Daniel Fasten, though, what gave you the courage to be so different?
Well, I had one great advantage. I'd never watched television, and so I was untarnished briefly. And I didn't know that there were rules to break, so I broke them. And I tore up the usual prearranged list of questions and tried to have a conversation instead. And discovered often in doing so that by asking the wrong question, one often got the more interesting answer, and that the pause could be as revealing as the reply, as one saw the person trying to wriggle out. One not only had to ask hard questions, but one had to be a very hard listener.
But people did open up to you, didn't they? They were not afraid.
Well, it was extraordinary then, because there was a sort of innocence. And children would say to me, I saw you on telly last night and waved at you. Did you see me? And two old ladies who had seen better days leant forward confidentially when I interviewed them and said, we wouldn't like anyone else to know this, but what we would like to afford Christmas would be some new underclothes. And people told me things that they wouldn't tell their neighbors. It was very exciting to be in at the beginning of ITV because there was an element of exploration as we made our own frontiers. And I think in a way we were able to be more daring then. And perhaps because of that it was more fun, because it was more dangerous.
That's the answer, I'm sure. Things were no easier for actors, of course. TV drama took no prisoners and allowed no second chances. It was all live.
Ah, poor little kid. Seriously, why don't you use your mix? That is a budgery guard.
No, if that were a budgie, I wouldn't be stood here.
And why not?
Because I'm scared of budgies and I'm not frightened of that one.
Have you ever seen a budgie?
Oh, I've heard all about them. When you're staggering about in the desert looking for water, they're up there circling round waiting for you.
Why just keep it away?
You're talking about vultures. What, you mean to say that's not a vulture?
No, it's a budgie.
You can please yourself, but I'm not stopping here and being threatened to death. I'm off. What is
What's all this then?
This is my husband. Our business not wants me to go on television.
Go on. Who are you?
Oh, well, I guess it was myself.
Yes, mate. You better rest.
Yes,
sad thing is that because so many shows were live, very little is left of them today. Now, Christopher Beanie was the young son in the first British soap, The Grove Family. Chris, what kind of pressures were you under? You were just a kid.
Well, as a child, not enormous pressures that I was aware of. I knew that working in life, seeing the old camera days brought back a lot of them. Is that if anything went wrong, you naturally carried on like a snake. One particular episode that I can remember is that we had an episode, very moralistic, the Grove Family was, giving great morals about family life and to do right, and we had to have a dog license. And we had this dog was brought in, which we rehearsed at great length. Unfortunately, the dog parted his mortal coil a day before we were going to transmit, so we couldn't bring another one in. So we did a whole episode with a lead attached to a sand weight and someone pulling on the dance. So the whole, and everything, and they also, everyone rushed out and bought dog licenses after that. They thought, well, the Grove Family doing it, we must do the same. But those are the sort of pressures we were under.
You know, I was there when Charlie Drake really threw himself into live TV. While you were being bundled into the ambulance, by the way, Charlie, I rushed to the telephone and rang the news people and told them what had happened. But you remind us what it was.
I didn't. I was unconscious at the time.
Yes, you were.
I feel better now.
You were pulled to a balsa wood set with a very tough wooden top. It was a bookshelf, wasn't it? And you couldn't rehearse it because it had to be rebuilt. And you went through there like a rocket and never got up the other side. And what made me, not laugh, but I was very respectful, the fact that they made you look neat and they threw you out of a window. Unconscious. And you don't remember a thing?
No, I was unconscious, Mike. Feel much better now.
Well, thanks, sir. We must not forget what was happening on the big screen. British films had never had it so good. Here's a reminder of some of the finest.
You're going to attack the Great Dam of Western Germany. Here are your targets. Here's the Murder Dam. That's the Ada. And there's the Thorpe.
Because he isn't used to them if this sort of thing happens. He must learn to live without a children.
We've had this out over 50 times. We've all tried to explain it.
Oh, you mean you and your family? A father who's so lazy he wouldn't lift a finger to help him. And your mother who uses Mandy as something to gush about and sentimentalize over like a spinster with a lapdog. And you are ashamed of Nanny, wanting to keep her out of sight. You and your kindness, you don't care a rap about her, any of you. All you care about is yourselves. You'd rather she remain dumb. Come on, darling. Oh, you are clumsy as all your fault. They never have
accident,
before.
Wendy.
Why couldn't you be more careful? It's ruined the dress.
Wendy, I'm terribly sorry. I didn't know you were pouring the coffee, otherwise I wouldn't have breakfast, Dora.
Darling.
Now look here, my friend, we don't want any... Very nice, thank you very much. Hold on there. What's the matter, chap? Don't you want to see yourself on the film? Take your missus to the locals, you'll love it.
And they certainly did love it as well. Dinah Sheridan, why do you think Genevieve was a smash?
I don't know. I suppose the cars have their own particular charisma, but, and of course it was a wonderful script. I don't think it was nearly so much fun to make as it was to see us. The four of us adored each other and we got on frightfully well, but we had our troubles. I don't know whether you saw there, but, or you noticed, that was Moore Park. We were never on the Brighton Road. That's the They put a signpost in saying to Brighton every now and again, but we were never on the Brighton Road. When I said to John Gregson that I'd like to spend a penny, we were actually aiming north towards Gerrard's Cross. And when I said, oh, there's somewhere, we were the further end of the old Kent Road. And when I got out of Genevieve to go across to the pub to spend my
I'd driven down to Brighton and said, that's where they made that film. Oh, well. But Richard Todd, many British films at that time were still looking back at the war, weren't they?
Yes, they were. I think one of the characteristics of the British film industry is that British movie makers have a particular flair, a skill for making that sort of action picture. Not only the directors, like Lewis, Gilbert, and Michael Anderson, but screenwriters, cameramen, technicians, not to mention the actors.
It wasn't so long after the war anyway, was it?
What?
It wasn't so long after the war.
It wasn't so long, and those who'd seen something of the war were quite glad to be able to go and reminisce and see it again, because they were able to do it from the comfort of a cinema seat and not have to go and do it in the field of battle.
Did you feel that television was a threat to the film industry?
Not at the beginning, no. Those of us in the cinema industry regarded television as very much as being the poor relation. In fact, all the people who went to work for television were chuck-ups in the film industry. People who weren't good enough to get jobs. And we were very aware of that. I thought television really as a form of news gathering and dissemination and sporting events.
Now let me introduce to you a young actress of the day who benefited from both media. Discovered on television, she soon became one of our most popular film actresses. Sylvia Sipp.
It was interesting seeing that scene from Mandy again. A wonderful role for Phyllis Calvert, who, after years of women being portrayed as brainless twits, was allowed to show the world that we had got minds of our own. Oh, dear. However, some writers of that day did write good dialogue for us girls. Woman in a Dressing Gown was another important film of that time, dealing with a woman who actually spoke her mind. I love him. You love him. You want to sleep with him, that's what you want. Love, you don't know the meaning of the word. You know that he snores, that he loses his temper if his paper's creased. He can't stand the sunshine, has to sit in the shade, gets rheumatism every winter. That he smothers the food you've cooked in sauce, whatever it is, whole dollops of sauce. You know 1,000 things about him. I know 1,000,000. You could compare that film with Brief Encounter, but Woman in a Dressing Gown showed it wasn't just people with posh accents who had marital problems. It's funny, but at that time I was such a prude. I thought the husband was justified in leaving his wife because he wouldn't keep her house tidy. Of course, I see things a lot differently now, and I think twice before filling out this survey. Does your husband ask your opinion about politics? Well, I actually opened my eyes to lots of things in the 50s, but there was still so much that was taboo in those days.
My troubles were soon over. I even got a bonus last week. Oh, yes, I say thank you to Lifebuoy toilets.
You know, personal freshness is important for everyone. Men as well as women. And all year round, too. Not only in summer, but also in winter. Because, you know, we wear lots of clothes and try and keep our rooms warm and cozy. So quite often the atmosphere gets rather hot and stuffy, and some people may perspire quite a bit. Now that's where Mum Roulette, the first ever roll-on deodorant and antiperspirant, is such a blessing. In one gliding action, it stops odor and checks perspiration for a full 24 hours. Mum Roulette is so economical, too. No drips, spills, or waste. By inverting the bottles just once, just the right amount of lotion is obtained from one application.
But it was an innovation, and we mustn't forget that cars, TVs, phones, and fridges, everything we take for granted, were all novelties then.
But something was wrong with Joe, too. Off his food, by the look of it. No, it wasn't Joe that was off. It was the cold meat, which was just about ready to go for a little walk on its own. Oh, said Ed, and hurried off to dump the lot. Obviously, the hot weather had done for it. The next thing was that Joe found the butter was ready to run off the dish. And it soon became clear that the cheese wouldn't be far behind. And this time, the hungry Joe was beginning to get desperate. Oh, well, let's try and pacify the man with a nice cup of tea. It usually works wonders, doesn't it?
from 1957 to 1983, and as far as I know, it's still going strong. You see, the 50s were not the disposable era, but we were hearing about fast food, the luxury of tiny frozen peas. No shelling. Taste of real coffee, and not the camp kind. Drip dry clothes, green shampoo, and hair lacquer. They were all minor miracles of the time. When you look back, things do seem rather grey and dreary. We did have hope. We knew things were going to get better, and we had service, even from the gas board. Home service section. Mrs. Norris speaking.
This is Mrs. Barnes. I'm so sorry to trouble you.
Why, of course it's no trouble, Mrs. Barnes. As I told you, that's what we're here for.
That is sweet of you, Mrs. Norris. You know, I do feel a fool. I'm sure it's my fault. But I still don't quite got the hang of it.
Don't worry, Mrs. Barnes. Between us, I'm sure we'll sort things out.
Couldn't you come in the morning?
All right, 11 o'clock tomorrow, then.
I'm afraid cakes never wear my strong points.
Oh, well, let's see how we've got on this time. There.
Oh, Mrs. Norris, what a beauty. So it was me after all.
Oh, well, Mrs. Barnes, naturally a new cooker does take some getting used to. I'm sure you'll get along fine now.
You know, I think I shall.
And you thought privatization had improved things. The idea of an appointment tomorrow. Well, the 50s can't have been all that bad.
Thank you, Sylvia. After the break, it's all round to my coffee bar where me and a few of the lads will be getting together a skiffle group. Back in a moment.
Really, isn't it? I can hardly wait to see what happens in part 3.
The coffee bar boom in Britain began in 1952, when the first espresso machine arrived from Italy and was set up here in London, Soho. And today, the most successful coffee bars are those with a specialized clientele. How to attract them? Here's one way.
You weren't cool in the 1950s unless you'd had a nice hot cappuccino, but if you really wanted to be hip, you not only had to sit in a coffee bar like this, but you had to strum your guitar as well. Yes, a 50s coffee bar was throbbing with atmosphere.
Wait a minute. We've got something better than that. Here's your chance. You got your guitar?
Yeah, what?
Get it and start playing.
And it was the only place to get discovered.
So baby, why you standing at the front? You gotta have some loving and you've been told. You gotta have someone who's gonna hold you tight. You gotta have someone who's gonna treat you right. Why don't you come in and be loved? Stake your claim. On a tree.
Before you knew it, you were rehearsing your TV special.
Letter of love to me.
Then you were a star. Oh, it's lovely stuff. Now, Bruce Welch, we can giggle a bit about coffee bars now. Were they really swinging places?
I think at the time, Mike, they were. I mean, I came to London with Hank when we were 15 years old from Newcastle-on-Tyne, which was a long way north. And to come to Soho for a 15-year-old boy from way up north was unbelievable. I mean, there's strip clubs, pubs. We left school and we came to the Two Eyes Coffee Bar. We came there because I'd read that Tommy Steele started there, Terry Dean started there, Wee Willie Harris, people like that, Gary Glitter even. And we came there and eventually were allowed to play maybe 3 nights a week, which we got 18 shillings a night overplaying. Many years later, I found out that in fact we should have been getting £1 per night, but 10% was taken as commission by the doorman.
It's a legend, isn't it?
It is a legend.
Now, Terry Dean, you had a big hit, of course, with the White Sport Coat. Did that film give you a big break, really?
It was the first, in fact, it was the only film I did make. I mean, it was certainly a help on the way, but the first time I appeared on the 6.5 special was with the White Sport Coat of Incarnation, which was about 1957, I think.
Now, Paul Lincoln managed you, of course, I mean, ran the Two Eyes Pub. Now, how did it get to be the hippest place in town?
Well, I think it was the era. There was absolutely nothing to do, and as Bruce made a very good point, to be able to come at 15 years of age, the kids were different then than they are now. You know, there wasn't any violence, and they were friends, and it may sound very strange, but Soho, for these people, and I mean, you can ask them, I mean, Two Eyes was a safe haven. There were no drugs, Coca-Cola and cappuccino. People were happy to sit there all night. You know, it was just an incredible era. The Two Eyes just seemed to be the place where it was. Come along to and where it would happen for you.
Now, Joe, we saw you there, of course, with Jack Good, who was responsible, as we know, for putting Pop on TV. Do you feel you owe him a lot?
I feel that everyone owes Jack Good a lot. We owe 2 people in this business a lot. One's Wally Donegan and one's Jack Good, and that's it.
Wait, pay me.
Sure, no one else ever has. I mean, he's talking about the 2 Eyes. You ever get paid there?
No.
Sorry, Paul, I never did, you know.
Well, what about agents? Did they exploit the kids?
Well, yes, but the point is, I mean, the kids today don't have that. I mean, my daughter's in the business, she don't get exploited. They've learned. But I don't regret a minute of it, to tell you the truth, because it's just like doing an apprenticeship. And we were young. We were young. We had a great time.
Ronnie, what about your show? What was the atmosphere like there?
Well, I must pick up on this word. It's the first time it's used today, and it's the most important word when you're talking about the 50s. Fun. Right? It was a totally different world from what it is today. In those days, the kids had fun. We went out for fun. We didn't go out to punch anybody in the eye or to make £1 million. It just was not in existence.
Now, you were one of the biggest stars there. Everyone acknowledged you.
5'5".
You had your knuckles wrapped there, of course. But big as you were, the BBC did wrap you over the knuckles, didn't they?
Well, the BBC was the big black box of everything. You know, once again, you've illustrated the fact that the one of the show business ever lived through the BBC, really. They didn't like what I did, and when I did one particular song, which I'm sure you're referring to, which was the Battle of New Orleans, in which was the line, you know, we fought the bloody British in the town of New Orleans. Well, I mean, that's how it was. The BBC shutters came, you can't say that. And they withdrew the record. We were forced to withdraw the record from the market, which in those days was unbelievable. And we had to reinsert the word ruddy instead of bloody. Well, that was all right then. But what you don't know is that I'd already been banned years before that when I was in the Chris Pyle Jazz Band, and we'd done a song called Somebody's Digging My Potatoes, Trampling on My Vine, which was full of double entendres. Yeah. They could spell that.
I don't think I can listen to any more of that. Well, you've got a group of young people behind us now who weren't even born when all this started, so why are you so besotted by the 50s?
Well, it's the best decade of the century, basically. Britain, during the war, was miserable. People were depressed. With the 50s, you had a rebirth of British culture. You had the music, the clothes, even the furniture. Of course, the singers, the big bands, not just rock and roll, but all the music. There was a new youth culture, and we're hopefully carrying on with it today, because it won't die for me, ever, ever.
Such discernment and taste. It's wonderful. No. All this talk of music has made my varicose veins throb with anticipation, so we're going to end our whistle-stop tour of the decade with some of the best kind of music from those days, from the 50s. Good night.
town in New Orleans, over by them guns, the rich get the coming, and there wasn't not many years there wasn't room to go. Over by once more, he began to run down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico.
Freight train, going so fast. Freight train, going so fast. I don't know what train he's on. Won't you tell me where he's gone?
Michael Aspel will be back with Aspel and Company next Saturday night on Central at 10:20.
Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream. Make him the cutest that I've ever seen. Give him two lips like roses and clover. Then tell him that his lonesome nights are over. Sandman, I go alone. Don't have nobody to call my own. Please turn on your magic beam. Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream. Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream. Make him the cutest that I've ever seen. Give him the word that I'm not a rover. Then tell him that his lonesome nights are Mr. Sandman,
Yes?
bring us a dream. Give him a pair of eyes with a come-hither gleam. Give him a lonely heart like Pagliacci, and lots of wavy hair like Liberace. Mr. Sandman, someone to hold, would be so peachy before we're too old. So please turn on your magic beam, Mr. Sandman, bring us, please, 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 Mr. Sandman, bring us our dream.
Okay, come and get it. It's so fun! That's where we're gonna bop. At the TV show, that's where we're gonna go. So put your books away and come along with me. At the TV hop, that's where we're gonna go. At the TV show, that's where we're gonna go. So put your books away and come along with me.
Welcome to the show. And did you see old Hot Lips Hall there exercising his tonsils? Well, what's good enough for him is good enough for me. So here goes. Come prima, pretty prima,
Thank you very much, boys and girls, and hi! This is Tony Hall. We got a sensation.
Wait a minute.
Let's do this one at a time.
Yeah, but I'm singing a song.
Oh, pardon me.
Well, the rest of us are ready, so come on, gang, let's go. Here's the Rocky M11, their latest record release. Rah, rah, Rocky
My name is Lucy Doo. Let me do. You know you look so very sweet. Let me do. You know you knock me off my feet. You're so fine and you are mine.
Rocking and rolling things, making hot legs, showing off, all that jazz. Well, I bought me a guitar a year ago and learned to play it in a day or so. And all around town it was well understood I was knocking them out like Johnny B. Good, making hot legs and I'm number one. Well, I practiced all day and into the night. My papa's hair was turning white. He didn't like my rock and roll. He said, you can stay, son, but that's gotta go. He's a square. Oh, he just didn't dig me at all. Well, I'm rocking and bopping and getting the breaks. Girls all said I had what it takes. When up steps a man with a big cigar, he says, come here, cat, I'm going to make you a star. Put you on bandstand by your Cadillac. Sign here, kid. So I signed my name and became a star, having a ball with my guitar. Driving a big, long Cadillac and fighting the girls off my back. They came running, screaming. They like it. So I keep my guitar and a great big grin. Money just keeps on pouring in. Then one day my Uncle Sam, he said, yeah, I am. Uncle Sam needs you, boy. I'm gonna cut your hair off. Take this rifle, kid. Give me them corn plasters. Yeah. Boy's great beat balladeer, my pal, Peter Elliott. When I grow too old to dream, I'll have you to remember. And when I grow too old to dream, your kiss is gonna be here in my heart. Whoa, yeah. So kiss me and kiss me and kiss me and kiss me. Keep on kissing me, baby.
party while in the Seine.
Oh, when the Seine go marching in. Oh, when the Seine go marching in. I wanna be a mile and a bird. When the Seine go marching in. Oh, when the Seine go marching in. Oh, when the Seine go marching in. I wanna be when the Seine go marching in.
Theater boy to join the Dallas boys and the lovely Vernon's girl. She gave me water and it was not from the well. I met a woman from Liberia, well, and she gave me that cool, cool water well. She gave me water and it was not from the well. Well, I met me a woman from Liberia, and she gave me that cool, cool water well. She gave me water and it was not from the well. Well, I asked this woman from Liberia, where did you get that cool, cool water well? Where'd you get the water that was not from the well? Well, I got it from the mountain so high, and I got it from the river, now the river is dry. Well, cool, cool water, and it was not from the well. Well, I asked this woman from Liberia, where did you get that cool, cool water? Well, where'd you get the water that was not from the well? Well, I asked this woman from Liberia, where did you get that cool, cool water? Well, where'd you get the water that was not from the well? Well, it was not from the well. Well, it was not from the well. Water. These most recent record called Dirty Old
Dreamed a dream by the old canal. Kissed my girl by the factory wall. Dirty old town, dirty old town. I'm going to make a good shop ass, shining steel, tempered in the fire. I'll chop you down like an old dead tree. Dirty old town, dirty old town, dirty old town. Cliff Richard says, "Turn me loose." Turn me loose, I say. This is the first time I ever felt this way. I'm gonna get 1,000 kicks and kiss 1,000 chicks. So turn me loose. I got some pain in my pocket and I'm raring to go. Taking some chicks to the victory show. And when I see her home and I kiss her goodnight, turn me loose, turn me loose, turn me loose, turn me loose, turn me loose. Turn me loose, I say. I know today's gonna be that day. I want you all to understand that now I am a man. So turn me loose, turn me loose. Don't leave like Neville Taylor and his cutters with. I got a gal who I can catch. She lives on gold and the hard to match. For her I'd do anything I could, but she's good, 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 good. She's a lady, baby, Bonnie, I'm a ring-a-ding, goody, good cat. Yeah, she's a good, good, sweet and sunny, she's good, good. Sweet as a honey, she's a good, good. Soft and fine, she's a good, good. Candy mine, she's a lady, baby, Bonnie, I'm a ring-a-ding, a goody, good cat. Not so very long ago now, I'd like you all to know, a funny chap to join the army came. He was short and he was fat, but he was a great big cat. So the sergeant said, "Now, buddy, what's your name?" He said, "It's John C. Jeemy Jebediah, oi, sir. Rifle, the mutton, Frenchy bean. Sure, a let me hide a sing, finger pocket, tire, lick, chili, going out, Willibert Alphas, Percy Green. Down to camp he went with us and it caused a lot of fuss. But keeping rules he never seemed to care. Once he stayed up late at night and it gave us all a fright when the sentry yelled out, "Halt, and who goes there?" He said, "It's John C. Jeemy Jebediah, oi, sir. Rifle, the mutton, Frenchy bean. Sure, a let me hide a sing, finger pocket, tire, lick, chili, going out, Willibert Alphas, Percy Green. Every day the whole brigade had a bathing desperate, and young what's-his-name would paddle near the shore. But the tide was strong one day, and it carried him away, and we never saw our buddy anymore. Goodbye to John C. Jeemy Jebediah, oi, sir. Rifle, the mutton, Frenchy Green. Sure, a let me hide a sing, finger pocket, tire, lick, chili, going out, Willibert Alphas, Percy Green. Goodbye to John C. Jeemy Jebediah, oi, sir. Rifle, the mutton, Frenchy Green. Sure, a let me hide a sing, finger pocket, tire, lick, chili, going out, Willibert Alphas, Percy Green. Chili, going out, Willibert Alphas, Percy Green. Chili, going out, Willibert Alphas, Percy Green. Dividing up a nickel, talking all about
17 songs and a commercial break after my song.
Oh, man, where have you been? We've had them all.
You know, Tony, maybe I took my song a little too slow.
Look, Jim, why don't you go away and practice a bit? As a matter of fact, we've all got to go away, gang, because old boy's coming off for the summer season.
But remember the date, September the 12th. Around about the same time, we'll be back with a really great show.
Incidentally, just before we go, kids, there's somebody I must tell you about. He's one of our backroom boys, and he's been responsible for all the sensational lighting effects that you've seen on this series. He comes from up north, and his name is Jimmy Boyers.
Good
Jim,
on,
good on,
Jim.
Jim. Where's Jim?
Tony, so long.
So long, kids. See ya.
Arrivederci.
Bye. Well, you gonna want it early in the morning, one of these days. Oh, yeah, well, you gonna want it early in the morning when I'm away. Hey, don't you know, God,
The 6-5 special steaming down the line. 6-5 special right on time. Coal in the boiler, burning up bright. Rolling and a rocking through the night. And my heart's a beating 'cause I'll be meeting the 6-5 special at the station tonight. Hear the whistle blowing, drop to the bow, wow, wow. See the lights are glowing, bright as a star, wow, wow. Now the wheels are slowing, it can't be far. Over the points, over the points, over the points, over the points.
It's time to jive on the old 6-5.
Good afternoon and welcome once again to our gardening club.
Lovers everywhere, and welcome to the show. Hello, Glenn.
Hello, Jack.
Hello, baby.
Hi, honey.
Well, hello, very nice to see you. Very glad you're able to look in. Ladies and gentlemen, I've had some letters since the last show we did. One or two people have written saying that I haven't a romantic personality, and this hurt me. It really did. In fact, one of my biggest problems is, am I too sexy to get loves? This is the only way I can explain the squeals that I get from teenage girls when I come on. Believe me, I'm a very romantic... It may not come over the screen that I'm romantic, but I am. Oh, I've got so much more than Montgomery Clift. Why should I fight it? I have. Oh, when I kiss a girl, she knows she's been kissed, you know. I leave a note. Now, I'm not idly boasting, and I want to prove this to the viewers at home. So right here and now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask a young lady out of the audience, and I'm going to kiss her just so you can see my romantic technique and just how attractive I am to the studio audience. Any young lady at all, come right down here. I really mean this. I want to kiss her right here. I'm going to give her a kiss in front of the cameras. Any young lady at all, come right down. Any young lady at all. Don't rush, you know. Just any young lady. Any middle-aged lady like to come. Any old lady. Any old man. Dennis. Well, being romantic isn't important, really. I mean, that's nothing to do with comedy. I may not be romantic, but I get a lot of publicity. Your cute friend.
We're from the Sunday Mirror. Can we take a picture?
The Sunday Mirror, yes, of course you can. Just like... Right, you can take a picture.
Smile, please. Thank you.
Well, publicity isn't important either, really. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're romantic or publicity-minded as long as you can fight. Show business calls for fighting, like Terry Dean. He's got to fight now, you know. He really has. I mean, he's back home, and he's got to get a top record. He's got to get back up at the top. I mean, it's quite a problem. He knows he can make the Military Cross, and he can make Edna Savage, but can he make Marty Wilde? That's the trick. You know... The funny thing, people you meet are so peculiar these days. On the way to the studio tonight, I saw a man, and he was lying in the gutter, and I said, "Are you ill?" And he said, "No, I found a parking space. I sent my wife to buy a car." When you go to buy a car, and I always think when you go to buy a car and you see these new cars in the showrooms, they seem to have a personality all their own. They stand in the showrooms and they go like this. Gleam. Gleam. I am a new car. Look at me gleam. Look at all my accessories. I've even got a miniature safe in the back for your jewelry there. Look at that. It's popular in the Southampton area. Look at this. These dirty cars they put me with. Look at that little second-hand coupe there. Hello, Baldy. Didn't like that. What's this fellow looking at? He can't afford to buy me. Don't kick the wheels. Don't kick the wheels. He's opening the boot. Ooh, he's got cold fingers. Don't slam it. My big end's gone. He's not going to get in it. He's in. Oh, he's a skinny one. What's the betting? He turns the wheel. Oh, yes, yes. There he goes. They always turn the wheel, then they test for... Then they test for home. There they go. What a stinking lousy... Manners. Oh, he's getting out now. Good, he's gone. That's the sort of fellow should buy me. Look at him. His smart suit and his rolled umbrella and that smart revolver. Revolver? He's holding the place up. He's not going to steal me. He's in me. He's starting me. Oh, my goodness, we'll go straight through the plate glass window if he drives me. Here we go. We're going through the window. Now we're already going. We're going 90 miles an hour, 100 miles an hour, 110 miles an hour. 110, that's not bad. There's a police car after us. They're going to shoot. Look out. They got me through the carburetor. We're going to crash. He's left me. Alone at the roadside. Beautiful new 1959 car, all broken and bust up. My petrol's running out. Won't anybody help me? Oh, here's a little 1937 breakdown truck. They really made cars in those days. Will you help me? Easy with the hook. Easy. Easy with the hook. Easy. Doesn't he look like Dennis Goodwin? Doesn't he? How do you do? Very nice to see you.
Good afternoon, sir.
You're the dockmaster here at Southampton?
Yes, I am, sir.
Oh, well, I'm Bob Moncars. I'm meeting Betty Johnson, the American star, off the boat from New York. What time do they disembark?
In about 10 minutes' time, sir.
Oh, I'll go and get a drink in the canteen. It's open, is it?
Not the canteen, sir. If you wouldn't mind using the self-service machines behind you, you'll find they give you everything you want.